warning. There will be two parts to my sermon today, so when you think I'm finished, I'm not. Most parables are generally simple stories that illustrate a moral or religious principle. Today's parable of the Shrewd Manager is not simple. First, it is important to note where the parable occurs in Luke. The story is actually a part of a 5-parable arc that is made up of the lost sheep, the lost coin, both of which we heard about last week, the lost son, known as the prodigal son, then this one about a rich man, and ends with the story of a rich man and Lazarus. Historically, the parable takes place in the 1st century when Israel was occupied by the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire would use its power to exploit the natural resources and the labor of the people of the countries it occupied. Rome needed large amounts of wheat, olive oil, and wine, which were produced in Israel. This might have been a great thing for the farmers, if it weren't for the fact that Rome also needed money and levied high taxes on these farmers. So the farmers fell behind on their payments. The wealthy landowners of Israel, seeing an opportunity, offered to pay the farmers taxes back taxes for the deed of their land. The farmers could then stay on the land as tenant farmers, and in return the farmers would pay back the loans by giving the landowner a certain, usually high percentage of their crops. The landowners would then take the crops and sell these products to Rome, increasing their wealth. The wealthy few would continue to get richer, and the farmers would never get out of the hole. Sound familiar? Yes. Because the landowners in Israel were located in the south and the farms were in the north, the owners hired managers to make the trip between the two territories. The job of the manager was to extract as much as possible from the farmers and bring the produce back to the owners. Now Jesus, turning away from the Pharisees who he was speaking to in the first 3 parables, now turns towards the disciples. Jesus says, once there was a rich man who had a manager, and charges were brought to him that this manager was squandering his property. So he summoned him and asked him, "What is this that I hear about you? Give me an accounting of your management, because you cannot be my manager any longer." The manager asks himself, "What will I do now? I can't endure the physical requirements of the laborer, and I am ashamed to beg. I have decided what to do so that when I'm dismissed as a manager, people may welcome me into their homes." So summoning his manager's debtors, one by one, he reduces each of their bills. He had figured out that his fate and the fate of the farmers were the same. He needed to find a way to survive. While he was still an agent of the master, which was, by the way, the only resource he had, he worked quickly to relieve some of the burden placed on the poor farmers by forgiving some of their debts. At this point, an improbable thing happens. The landowner commends the manager because he acted shrewdly. The manager outsmarted the rich man. In fact, the landowner knew that he had to accept what the manager did or put his entire economy in crisis. The manager had shrewdly turned the economic structure upside down. He chose to use the unjust wealth extracted from the farmers to help them instead. Ultimately, the parable suggests how to upend the prevailing economics in the world today by using our God-given resources, whatever they may be, to build social relations rather than sacrificing social relations to gain wealth through the exploitation of the resources of others. In other words, it attempts to model the economy of the kingdom by placing community before profit. Now part 2. So you may be wondering why I had this $20 bill with Harriet Tubman put on the front of our bulletin today. This $20 bill hasn't appeared yet, but I believe it will someday. The $20 bill may be even the story of 2 thieves. The first one being the one that exists today, with Andrew Jackson on the front. A hideous slave owner. He bought and sold slaves because that was the prevailing economy that worshipped wealth over God. God's law says, love God and love each other. What Andrew Jackson did was evaded both of those laws. He loved money, and he did not love his neighbor. Now, on the other hand, Harriet, so is he a thief? Because the people that he owned were stolen from the communities of Africa and brought here against their will. And then he bought them and treated them very badly. In fact, one story talks about how he had a woman slave whipped 100 times because he thought she was putting on airs. Now comes Harriet Tubman. In her time, she was a criminal. She was a thief because she stole what the master had bought. She had stolen what was rightfully hers and God's and led herself to freedom. And then encouraged others to do the same and actually help them to get to freedom. She was a God-fearing person. So, I guess I leave it up to you. Our money says in God we trust, but do we really? What do we value? To my friends here at St. Matthias, we continue to shrewdly build community through our mission of serving everyone who walks through our doors. No doubt, our community is now going through some very uncertain times. But be not afraid. Let us remember that the resources offered by God through each of us are endlessly abundant and available. Amen.
Amen.